my first time here at the OpenShift Twitch channel, so always a pleasure to
Welcome.
join this great set of people. And I work on the developer advocacy team at the Red Hat Developer Program. So usually I talk about Java, Kubernetes, and all this sort of stuff. I'm also a Java champion and a Microsoft MVP. And my Twitter handle is @Yanaga, just in case you can see here shirt. So if you want a tip, well, follow me on Twitter. I usually talk about a lot of technical stuff, and that's it.
Excellent. So Edson's going to be helping recap a portion of the Devination Day activity that occurred last week, basically during and following our presentation during last week's show. A couple other folks we have that are going to help recap some of that. Other tracks, I think we have Jason Nobis that led the Python track, and Joel Lord who led the JavaScript track. So Joel, would you mind giving us a quick intro, and then we'll pass it to Jay and Brian?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, well, I actually work with Ryan as a developer advocate for the Red Hat OpenShift platform. And I've been using OpenShift a little bit, or exploring around OpenShift in the last year or so, ever since I joined this team. I really come from a JavaScript background, so that's what I've always done. I'm a big fan of JavaScript. And that's what led me to leading this, or hosting the JavaScript track at Devination Day last week. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. You can find me on Twitter at Joel with 2 underscores Lord, so Joel __ Lord. It's like the worst Twitter handle ever, but hey, it is what it is.
I just dropped that in chat for everybody, so don't worry.
Thank you.
No problem.
So my name is Jason Nobis. I'm also on the same team as Ryan and Joel. I've been on this channel not too long ago talking about Python, so kind of no big surprise. I ended up leading the Python track. I'm kind of the de facto Python guy here. I've been doing that for, my God, 10 years. And I know. Every time and I'm not much older than you, but somehow I feel spectacularly older when I'm on the stream with you. And yeah, I did the Python track at Devination Day. And in terms of Twitter, I'm JDOB, which Chris has already put in chat.
Yeah. And I'll grab Ryan's and mine. And is that everybody's?
No, you got me. So
Brian.
Yeah, don't forget about me. Come on. So yeah, I'm Brian Tanis. I am on the same team as Ryan and Jay and Joel. I am a developer advocate focused on OpenShift. And I didn't lead a track, but I attended a lot of the sessions, so I've got some commentary for some of that stuff. It was a pretty sweet week, and I'm excited to talk about a little bit of what happened.
Awesome. It sounds like a great show you put together for us today, Ryan.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, great to have you all here. So I had a small amount of other news I was hoping we might be able to kind of review before we jump into Devination Day and proceed to spam the audience with all of our really great content we've come up with lately. Definitely worth taking a look at. But I wanted to do a quick stop on other community news before we jump back to Devination Day, which is our main topic. So let me find I'm trying to find the document I had.
Oh boy.
That's covering. Here we go.
Yeah, it's amazing how tabs and windows disappear the second you get in a live
No
stream.
kidding. I know. I thought I specifically put it on a different desktop, and now that desktop is no longer where I left it. Here we go. So, top news item I had for today. I noticed that there's a new Minikube release, Minikube version 1.13, which is their 100th killer release of Minikube. Take a look at if you're a Kubernetes upstream Kubernetes user, that's a great way to get a hold of a kind of small VM-based Kubernetes environment. congratulations to the community for making sure Kubernetes is easy to get and easy to reproduce for development purposes. We also have a news item number 2, and a shout out to Brian Tanis here on the stream today. We've recently updated the OpenShift playground environments. I'm not sure if is there a link to it currently,
I got it.
Brian?
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a link.
Is it in the doc?
It's in the doc, and we
Okay.
can drop it into chat.
Got it.
I don't know if we've exposed it through the menu system. Brian would know.
Yes, it is. So
Excellent. Yeah.
So it's exposed. Yeah. So we have Katacoda or learn.openshift.com, which is a whole environment where you could get OpenShift in a browser without, using any resources on your machine, without having any login or anything. You just go to this link, and we now have OpenShift 4.5, which is the latest release of OpenShift available in there. So you could go and install operators and, play with, everything that is OpenShift. It is a full OpenShift cluster that's available for free. One thing is it's a 1-hour time limit, and the things that you have in there will not be saved. So it's a testing playground area, but just make sure that you're aware of that before you go ahead and, put your app and stuff in there, because it'll close in an hour.
Yeah, so theoretically, you can reload your browser as many times as you like at the end of the hour, as long as you don't mind losing if you're a stateless web developer, you're set.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, great opportunity to try out OpenShift 4.5 for free without even needing a VM setup. You just need a browser. So thanks to Brian. Congrats on getting that environment updated and available for folks.
Yeah, and whenever you're done with learn.openshift.com, there's always openshift.com/try. And I just dropped a link to that in chat for you. And that way you can actually start building out big clusters that run for as long as you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or
other options.
Small clusters that run for as little as you want.
Yeah. Another option in there in that try, openshift.com/try is going to be code ready containers, which gives you a similar to Minikube, a VM based Kubernetes using OpenShift in addition to the stock Kubernetes distro. So
awesome.
Nice updates all around. Docker Hub, there's a link to a Docker Hub and Quay issue that Chris had in the lineup. Chris, is this?
Well, I mean, not so much like a link to, but we had some folks on earlier this month, I think it was this month, about Quay and Docker Hub, talking about, so Docker Hub is, I think we've talked about it here before. They're changing their retention policies a little bit, and it's wise on their decision, right? Like, there's no reason to keep terabytes and petabytes of old images around that people aren't touching. But if you don't touch a certain amount of your images in a certain frequency, right, like, they're going to get deprecated. So there's some we wanted to make sure that folks know that Quay is out there. And, I know it could be Key, it could be Quay, however you want to say it. I don't care. Say it the way you want it. Whatever makes you happy, I am all for it. But I call it Quay, so that's just the way I say it. So there's a slide deck there that's super helpful how to get started with Quay registry. And I'm going to be working on, we had some reliability issues with Quay recently, and phase 1 of the reliability and stability, efforts has finished, and we had an entire month of 100% uptime of Quay. So I want to get that on the program to see, hey, what did y'all do? How did y'all do that? I mean, we went from, a little bouncy for a little bit, a little scary, to 100% uptime. That's pretty great, right? So gonna get them on the channel, and gonna get the engineers on and have them talk about what they did to improve the environment there to get things up and running more stably.
Cool. And it looks like we got a note here. We may have a blog post or a guest appearance at some point on the stream from those folks. So cool. Thanks for pointing that out, Chris.
Question in chat, actually, folks.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Okay, so if you're ready for this one, Brian, you might like this one. Yeah, Joel too. Can you please talk about time zones in OpenShift? The documentation says that it depends on the container image, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Also, the doc says Red Hat recommends against changing the time zone, which is also true. By default, Kubernetes uses UTC. Who wants to talk about what happens when you muck around with time zones and container images, though?
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
anyone brave enough to stand up for, like, my experience is set everything to UTC, and when it gets
set it and
difficult,
forget it.
it's the developer's fault, or it's, you know, like there's some level of pushing the blame onto some other team that that frequently happens. Who's the
in general,
localization
I
team?
never muck with time zones anymore, right? Like I
That's a-
will
that's a-
take the log and then convert the time zone, right? Like I
That's
will
all
take
a
whatever
rendering and
output.
display issue. That's
Yeah.
that's the design team's problem.
Agree. I mean, that's how I've dealt with it before too. I mean, I guess I'm kind of curious, maybe some more information on what's
like
going on and what isn't working, because
what is
like,
not working for you, Nishant? We would love to see like
Yeah.
some more info about this, because normally, like for us cloud natives, I'll call us, you know, we set everything to UTC and off it goes. You know, maybe the host OS of a, you know, hypervisor is set to local time, but that VM is always going to be UTC. Yeah, like exactly. JP Day said it, forget it.
I mean, if like the user is trying to look at, you know, a log or graph or whatever is going on, you know, I think about, oh, hey, I have Google Calendar or other calendar web-based apps, and every time I change time zones, I fly to somewhere else, I get a notification. Oh, hey, look, you're in a different time zone. Do you want to set? It's a rendering thing for me, and like I follow that as well. So I'm kind of curious of what's going on with that.
Yeah, there is a little additional thing here. The dev team mentioned that their remote logs have different timestamps than what they collected from our OpenShift. That is interesting. So that could be the remote logging instance applying timestamps or converting timestamps on its own. Or it could be some unusual configuration in the container itself, in which I would highly encourage you to go look at the container image and see if it has any TZ settings in it and take them out.
That remote logging service might be logging local time, where
Right.
OpenShift is logging UTC.
Exactly. That's what I am thinking the problem might be there. But if that's not the case, let us know. And when I say remote, it's physically the same site, but just outside of OpenShift. Right. We get that. We understand that, Nishant. Thank you. But I'm curious, is it like an F-stack kind of thing, or what is the time server settings on that box or that system or that application even? That might be causing the issues if you're doing some time zone conversion there. I feel like that might be the case. So yeah, normally everything in OpenShift is UTC set based on upstream, right?
Yeah, my guidance would be there's the infrastructure time, right, which is all UTC, and then there's maybe user level time, which is like a preference for an offset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's up to the user, and maybe even changes as they're traveling, you know.
Right. And like that's what our UI and UX team does, right? Like,
yeah.
For example, they'll be on next week talking about all the fun new things coming in the developer console. You know, just a plug for them real quick. But yes, like that time zone issue is probably something that hits a lot of people. You know, speaking of time zones, I didn't realize until I moved here that Detroit has its own time zone file. It's actually symlinked to Eastern Standard Time nowadays, but apparently it used to be different enough to where that had its own time zone file.
Special case just for Michigan.
Yeah, so all of my servers that need local time, or all my systems that need local time, Detroit.
Just the Great Lakes people get their own special time zone.
That's the same as Eastern Standard, so whatever.
Just in case you guys decide not to do daylight savings time at some point in the future.
At some point in the future. I don't know if that's a past thing or a future thing. I need to research like the how and the why of it. But yeah, definitely.
Like, we're not Chicago. We're not New York.
We're not New York. We're Detroit, right? Like maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. That could have been it. It could have been a pride thing.
We make cars here. We don't do financial stuff.
Actually, we do. So
there's
probably more mainframes buried in the basements of Detroit towers than any other city, I bet.
True that.
All right. There's a new public repo you wanted to plug here.
Yeah, this is, I'm not sure. It's a very, very early effort, and I'm not even sure if we're supposed to be talking about it yet. It may
Oh,
be too
even
early,
better.
but too late. I posted it in chat,
Not my
and
fault.
it's public on the internet. So if we didn't want to public, we shouldn't have put it out there, I guess. Anyway,
Right.
I saw a email thread internally at Red Hat
Very active
about
email thread at that.
conscious language, and the Kubernetes community has also been kind of reviewing terminology. What do we want to call the control plane? Is master an appropriate term or not? So if you're interested in that type of discussion, take a look at the Conscious Lang repo. There's a documentation link or a documentation sub repo within there. And I filed an issue early on just saying, so is the default name of this primary branch, should it be master or should it be something else? I don't know, just
some more news on that
as a point of debate for those folks. Coincidentally, I have already updated the Kubernetes by example code base so that the default branch is now called main instead of master. Shouldn't matter to any of you. But if you're interested in using Kubernetes by example.com, you should now see that all the embedded links are now pointed to the main branch instead of the master branch.
Didn't GitHub just announce?
I was going to say, I just put in my newsletter this week, or they just announced this week that GitHub is announcing October 1st, all new repos will default to main. They will no longer have master as the default, branch.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, so I'm already doing the.
You're like ahead of the power curve, and like that's my weekend task this weekend. Since GitHub, like I have to beat GitHub, right? Like that's just my thing. So.
And if you have old repos, you're gonna need to do the work to update all of your public references. So there's a couple steps involved. If you want to see some migration advice, feel free to take a look at Kubernetes by example. I recorded kind of the steps I took to switch from master to main in GitHub issues. So feel free to kind of go through the past GitHub issues if you want to see specifically which Git commands I typed in order to reset my local branch and to give other people who already have branches on their laptop steps on how to move from master to main without losing their work. So if any of that's useful for you, go ahead and take a look. I think we've got...
You got a link there for that?
Yeah, there's I can add a link to the Kubernetes by example. Let me grab that in a second. I
got the Kubernetes by example.com, but I was talking about the how to go to main to master kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll look that up. While I'm looking that up, Chris, would you be interested in briefly covering the next issue?
Of course. Yeah, sure. I'll happily take this on. So
excellent.
A friend of mine and open source, just personality, Sarah Novotny, said that, the Linux kernel mailing list is kind of a barrier to entry for contribution to the Linux kernel in a Register article recently. And, my take is I 100% agree, right? Like we need to make the barrier to entry to contributing to any project pretty easy, right? And working in the upstream Kubernetes community, we make a conscious effort of doing that. And we realize that sometimes, and we see this quite often in our new contributor workshops, that barrier to entry sometimes gets higher and higher, not lower and lower. So, a conscious effort to keep that barrier of entry as low as possible is something we focus on in the Kubernetes world. However, Linux development has been done via patch files on a mailing list since its inception, and that seems to be way harder to keep going nowadays, as like you need text email set up in a certain way and a certain styling with all this other fun stuff, and then you need this patch file that's a Git patch file that's not really something we use regularly on a on a day-to-day basis. I'm curious what Dobie's thinks of this.
I don't want to comment because I have my issues with how the Linux kernel is run in general. And I think it's interesting this is the topic because this is the most, God, I'm going to get shit for this, but toxic community, open source community out there. And I think that, I saw a whole bunch of smiles come up when I said that. I think this in particular is one of the ones that is in dire need of revamping. I'm just gonna punch out there because this is.
That's fine. I can give some context to all of that, right? Like, for example, Linus took some time off last year and they implemented a code of conduct because of the toxicity within the community. It had gotten to such a point where it was just like, how are we going to continue to develop if we're constantly screaming and yelling at each other, right? Like, Linus Torvalds is not known for being the nicest person on the internet. No one is, right? Like, I mean, minus like a handful of people, maybe my coworker Andrew Sullivan's the nicest person on the internet. I don't know, but
he's certainly the most huggable.
Right,
that's true.
You are
the cuddliest curmudgeon I've ever met. Yes,
that's right. You are kind of downplaying it. I think that for considering that as an open source model is almost not. It's definitely not the one you want to look at as the model of an open source project.
No, they're way healthier projects to look at.
Right. To tangent this a little bit, before I got onto OpenShift, I worked on OpenStack. And one of the legitimate reasons when I transferred teams over to that was I was dying to see how such a spectacularly large project with that many companies with a vested interest would actually work together. Because I had this mentality going into it that I didn't believe it could work. I thought we were going to run into issues of, oh, well, such and such a company needs something, but the company who largely is driving that feature has different deadlines, so it's going to mash up. Watching it play out, I mean, it wasn't the smoothest thing in the world, and there were definitely personality conflicts, but to see that many companies with that much money riding on it, all playing nice together. And the exact same thing can be said for Cube. It's just, I first saw it for OpenStack. I think is a really interesting model to see how you have these developers who understand upstream and they understand open source, and they're driven by companies who largely understand them. But I know there has to be some kind of pushback in some of these other companies of the business side not really understanding why the developers are telling them like, no, this is going to be 6 months out, because this isn't just 4 people in a room who you're saying we're not going to pay you if you don't hit next Friday. This is a lot of other people who are going to get paid next Friday. So they really don't give a shit about your arbitrary deadline. And I think that's super healthy and a really interesting way of seeing kind of open source run, and optimistic, where yes, they're still managed to get things done. It's still a huge project. Again, same thing for Kubernetes, where it's obviously trucking forward. And I think it's kind of interesting how the business side had to adapt to that and be like, okay, we're buying into this, but we've got to buy into this with 2 feet. I have also spectacularly gone off topic for what you initially asked me. So
that's totally fine. And time check, Ryan. I'm not sure how much longer you want to spend on news topics before.
We should move it along. We got a couple. I'll try to wrap up the news, and then we could move to the Devination Day recap, because we've got plenty of guests and plenty of content to review there. So last couple announcements for news that we have. There's a Kubernetes steering community or committee votes are currently happening now. If you care about who's at the leadership team in the Kubernetes community, or if you're a Kubernetes contributor, you should be able to vote. Go ahead and do that. Voting's probably important. Especially for communities you're involved in. So let's see. Also, related to making sure you got the right leadership in your community, the Red Hat is hiring a new GM for our developer business unit. I will post a link in chat regarding a kind of brief announcement. I don't have a full announcement here, but if you know anyone who's a developer GM that would be a particularly good fit for the role, definitely make sure they are aware of the opening. And the last bit of news I have, if you just joined us during this hour, the hour immediately before us is the Devination show with Sebastian Blanc, new show. Definitely give it a look. Sebastian's been doing a great job promoting it recently. Just thought I'd give them a mention. I think that's it for news, unless anyone has something else that they'd like to cover or any questions in chat we missed. If not, I'll move it right along to our Devination Day recap.
Yes.
Let's post in. Let's see. I got a couple links to post.
I was about to say you got a couple.
Here's the GM announcement. And here is announcement that you should go take a look at the Devination show. And then I've got a link to the Devination Day landing page. And for folks in chat, go ahead and click on that link, developers.redhat.com/devination/Devination Day. And that should give you access to all of the videos that we're going to be discussing here. Like I said, this just took place last week. So these are all available on demand. Let's start off with kind of doing a brief walkthrough of the main track. The first talk on the lineup here was Kubernetes is Boring, featuring Clayton Coleman, who's been kind of one of our lead architects for a very, very long time from Red Hat, focusing on the upstream Kubernetes effort. This talk, this talk is really kind of downplaying Kubernetes is really meant to just be infrastructure and meant to be boring and meant to be kind of in the background and not in your face. And so I think Clayton did a good job of kind of driving home that point that this is just boring infrastructure, or at least it should be. And so if it's taking up too much of your focus and attention, maybe you need to reevaluate your approach. Next topic we had in here was Kubernetes the Easy Way, which is maybe looking at how you might reevaluate your approach, focusing more on YAML. And that talk was by Jessica Forrester from Red Hat. We've got a link to the video there on the page for you. This was really just saying, hey, look, we do have, Kubernetes does have easy controls that hopefully can give you keep the complexity out of your face. Any other comments on these? Anyone else here tune in for those, the main track
I was
last week?
Half listening, half doing admin shit in the background. This is my first event I've ever kind of run. Joel's smiling because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Edson too, there's a whole bunch of scramble. I guess I'll kind of explain that a bit. So we had 6,400 registrants, which, Devination, without getting into behind the scenes inside baseball stuff, Edson's team is kind of the owners, the founders of Devination. And we're still new to it, which is say we, meaning pretty much everyone else on this call, the four of us from my team, and then Chris Short, starting to contribute. I know I've done a master course on there. We've definitely contributed to it, but where I'm going with this is I was floored at the reach of Devination. I did not expect nearly 6,400 registrants, which was incredible seeing it. And then the software we're using, obviously not anything Red Hat based, but they were slightly underprepared for that level. We had a number of people in the internal, the keynote. It was amazingly global. It was bonkers. I love this in our new world of virtual conferences, where this kind of thing has cropped up where people come in and they just say hi in chat, hello from wherever. And I'm from New Jersey, so I don't say that because nobody gives a shit. But it's cool when you see hello from Singapore, hello from Brazil, and just see how global it is. It's really bonkers. all of this goes back to, yeah, we were dealing with some internal stuff, so I didn't get to pay too much close attention to them. But the one comment about Clayton's talk, I don't believe he drew this parallel, but I've drawn it myself, that like a good build system or a good CI/CD system, those are boring too, where they should just get there, they should work, and you should forget they're there. And they should just continue to function and do their thing, but you shouldn't be actively thinking about it. So if you've got a good Jenkins setup, like, yes, I care when a build breaks, but I don't care about how Jenkins is functioning. It's just there. Maybe we have someone doing some basic administration on it. And I think that that's an interesting parallel to draw to Kubernetes, which is different. I don't want to say more important than a CI/CD system or build, but obviously has a longer tail to it, a bigger reach to it. But I think it's an interesting notion that, yeah, if this is doing its job, it's just kind of there doing its job, and you shouldn't really have to interact with it. You shouldn't have to think about it too much, except for the occasional, holy shit, this is cool that I was just able to scale up the load and stuff like that. So like I said, I half paid attention to it. So he may have even drawn that analogy, but I know the first time I heard something like that was about a build system, that, yeah, it should be just absolutely, you set it up and then you don't think about it again, barring some very minimal routine maintenance. I am loving this hello from, even though it's all just our own people. But yes, I absolutely, it's so fascinating seeing that, especially with the Devination reach.
Yeah, excellent turnout. And if you were not one of the 6,400 people who caught the show live, definitely take a look at these links. I'm going to run us through the last couple. There's 3 more topics on the main track that I'll briefly mention. We had Derek Carr, who's another major upstream Kubernetes contributor, talking about Kubernetes pods in Kubernetes. Pods are really kind of a fundamental concept and your minimum unit of scale if you're new to Kubernetes. So really important point to get for new folks. Next topic, Paul Mori, another excellent core contributor who's worked on a lot of different details of Kubernetes, spoke on Kubernetes Knative features, being able to scale down to 0 pods in a serverless replica, and then instantly auto provision or auto respond to requests in kind of real time without a huge delay for spinning up that initial container. So yeah, Knative. Last topic we had, Andrew Block spoke on Kubernetes in the enterprise, which is really where Red Hat helps out quite a bit with kind of the day 2 operations and making sure that the rubber actually does meet the road for businesses using Kubernetes. That was it for the main track. We have 3 additional tracks, and I've reshuffled the order on these since Edson is new to the channel or to the stream, and he hasn't been speaking much. I was hoping to put Java up front, and then we could swap to JavaScript and Python, if that's all right with y'all. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Sounds okay, because Java is always first, isn't it? Right?
Excellent. Cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's like
starting out strong.
Isn't it like the biggest like enterprise programming language in existence right now? I mean, it's the most widely used in the enterprise, isn't it?
I think that's if you count JavaScript and Node.js as 2 separate things, then definitely.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, I think sometimes I see those listed as separate languages, even though Node.js is actually JavaScript server side. But yeah, I think it's Java, JavaScript are both really high up on the list. Java probably beats it out for enterprise work, I imagine.
It's funny because depends on the paper that you get different numbers. So of course I'm using the ones that are in my favor. So at least for me, it's still number 1. I guess it's just a matter of taste. And just to complement what Jason said, for those of you I've seen here in the chat, James Dade is a huge fan of Devination because he's absolutely in every single streaming that we present. So thank you very much for watching this one too. Yeah, it's not strictly about Devination, but since we're talking about Devination, yes, we have a huge fan, James. Thank you very much for attending like almost everything that we present. So Red Hat usually talks a lot to system operators, and Devination is the brand that we've been nurturing for some years to talk for the developer audience. So we did Devination events, like physical events, when this was such a thing that these things used to happen. So we started, it was like 5, 6 years ago, some Devination events. Last year we had 2 physical events in 3 actually. We had one in Bangalore, we had one in London, we had another in Austin. And these days we intended to keep doing the physical events, but for the first time we had this virtual initiative, and with 6,400 people, and at the peak top of the hour we had like more than 3,000 people watching us live. I think it was such an accomplishment.
Absolutely.
We tried something different. You've seen, well, yeah. Kudos to all the team that organized the event. And you might have noticed that we tried to do something different because everything was live. We didn't stop at any given moment of time. And between the sessions, we didn't want people to even go like grab some coffee or go to the bathroom and have a restroom break. We wanted people to stay. So we have like interactive games. So, oh my God, I can't leave right now. So we're going to play. We're going to have some quizzes and some polls, and that was it. So we tried to do that in the best possible way to be different and to be fun. But we also had great content. And I know a lot of people, we broke the platform. Like we use the crowd-class server platform. We know a lot of people complain, especially in the morning, because I'm lagging, voice is breaking or something. And we tried everything. We said it's going to be a huge crowd watching, but even the platform guys didn't, I think they weren't expecting that much, but they were able to fix it during the day. But all the sessions were recorded, so just in case you're watching this and you missed a bit of the sessions in the morning during Devination Day, you have the opportunity to watch everything again now at your own pace. Now it's all on YouTube, so if you want to click on that 2 times speed, you're good to go. You'll be able to cover the same content in half the time.
Skim through it. Yeah. Any you have a favorite standout track or presentation that was a highlight for you from the? I know as a track lead, you're probably not supposed to pick favorites.
It's like your children or something.
Yeah, right. But is there one particular that seemed relevant based on what you're working on lately? I noticed there's a Jax RS in there.
There's a lot in that track.
Yeah. Ray Sang from Google did a presentation. We've got Simon Maple from Sync talking about security.
No, they were all very interesting sessions. As I said, it's very hard to pick one because, well, I invited all of those people, so it would be
yeah. Okay.
Over the others, it's kind of complicated.
Yeah. But, anyway, if you're a Java developer, give that link a click. Find out what information is relevant for you based on what you've been working on recently. Awesome. Thank you, Edson. Next up, unless you have any other thoughts on the Java track, or if anyone else has thoughts on Java, next up would be Joel with the JavaScript track recap.
I have no thoughts on Java whatsoever. So yeah, I'm gonna. My track was the obviously the most popular language nowadays. So the one to reach the most developers. It's actually funny because Tamar, our first speaker, she talked about building effective microservices in Node.js. And one of the first stats that she came out with right at the beginning of her talk was that 58% of developers that are building microservices are using JavaScript nowadays. So, old developers use Java, cool, hip developers like me.
To me, it's like, are you targeting people who are using a web browser? If so, that's like everyone. Yeah, then you need JavaScript. It's like the use case. If you miss that one, you're only dealing with command line people, and that's a specific group of people, right?
No, not to bash any languages, but it was a fun track, and that's where I spent most of my time. In the pre-COVID world is at JavaScript conferences. So all the speakers that we had were speakers that I knew from those conferences. The first one was Tamar, as I already mentioned, from XM Cyber. I was very happy that she was here. She's based in Israel, so that was time zones and stuff. It was a little bit late for her, but she was more than happy to join us. She actually told me that this was the biggest virtual live event that she ever attended so far. So she was really impressed with the number of speakers, so the number of attendees. So she talked about building effective microservices. She mentioned a lot of different things, a lot of good tips on how to make your services more effective using JavaScript. So how can you use that asynchronous aspect of JavaScript and use workers behind the scenes and making sure to, just make sure that everything is efficient. There are a few interesting things there. I wasn't familiar with Nest.js, the new backend framework for Node.js. I heard about it, but I hadn't seen anything really. So that was kind of an interesting takeaway. I will definitely take a look at it. It uses TypeScript a lot, as well as a lot of decorators and a lot of very new modern aspects of JavaScript. So that was really interesting and definitely something that I will look into in the next few days, I guess.
What talk was that?
The one from Tamar from Effective Microservices in Node.js.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I noticed there's a couple other ones on here.
From MongoDB, also developer advocate, very good speaker. He's always very entertaining, but also very informative. So his talk was about Internet of Toilets. So how he built a IoT kitty litter box using JavaScript. So if you didn't see that talk, if you need to look or see or watch one talk, that's a very good one. You should definitely take a look. So you really showed how he built a IoT device.
He did an awesome job too. Is like he built the box and like he had nice gifts throughout the thing that showed like him putting things together. It was really nice. It was nice seeing the IoT and all. That's my favorite JavaScript track session.
And he did, yeah, like Brian's saying, he didn't half-ass it. Like me, like the tech would have been interesting, and then it would have been held together with duct tapes and hopes and dreams.
Yeah,
it was actually like a nice wood cutout, and like he actually took time to hide the wires and stuff like that. And meanwhile, like I have a rat's nest of just my mouse and keyboard and monitor wires, like literally right here on my desk. But his kitty litter looks way better than my office environment.
So to that point, actually, just it's not an IoT device, but if you're into IoT, there's a Red Hat robot kit that is available, and it actually uses JavaScript, which is a fun little robot that you can build on your own. So I've just recently built it, and it won't, it's a nice kit that comes like all 3D printed, so it's not duct taped or anything. It actually works pretty well. So, but it shows how JavaScript is everywhere, and you can even use it for IoT. Johnny 5, the library that he demonstrated, is one that I've used in the past. It's very versatile. You can use it for pretty much everything that you want to do, either with the Raspberry Pi or Arduino, or even the ESP8266. I'm just trying to sound smart. I'm not sure what's the name of that chip, but I believe that's what it is.
Yeah, Wi-Fi connected. It runs Arduino compatible or ESP32. Is that kit the Colab kit? I think it is, right?
It's
we need a link to that.
Yeah, I gotta find that.
Put a link for that one. Actually, it's a very interesting kit.
Collab kit. I'm looking for it.
Developed between Adafruit and Red Hat.
Oh, cool!
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Adafruit's awesome. They're like good stuff. You can't go wrong with anything there.
Red Hat Collab robot kit from SparkFun. That's what.
Maybe it's SparkFun.
I'm looking for the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should make sure we know if it's SparkFun or Adafruit. Both good shops.
Both are awesome. Yeah.
Both are awesome. Either one can't go wrong with either one.
Sorry, my
SparkFun. Okay, sorry.
Cool.
I will post that link here.
Yeah. Excellent.
There we go.
Cool. Yeah, definitely check that talk out. Two other talks that I didn't get the opportunity to catch all of the talks in this track yet. I need to double back and catch a couple of these. Two that stood out to me as being really interesting. were the WebAssembly talks. There's one called Introduction to WebAssembly by Guy Royce.
It's Guy Royce. I read it.
Okay. At Redis. And then there's Frameworks Are Dead, Long Live the Compiler from Mike Harrington at Ionic. Those both sound like they probably are doing WebAssembly.
So for people that don't know, what's the point of WebAssembly? Why do we need this? I think it's awesome.
I think it's awesome too.
I don't know. Why do we need it?
Well, maybe so it lets you run programming languages that aren't JavaScript in the browser, right? Like generally speaking.
I mean, it allows you to basically run like Go or C or Rust or whatever you want in the browser.
I could run my Java on my JavaScript.
Come on. Heck yeah. Yeah, you could run Go, Python. I mean, WebAssembly is
the top
cool.
language now.
If you're all compiling it down to bytecode that's JavaScript, I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's bytecode.
The biggest issue with WebAssembly now, so it's getting accepted, it's getting supported by most major browsers. The biggest issue is how do you communicate and how do you have access to the DOM from within your WebAssembly code? So that's the big issue at the moment. It is definitely a great technology. If you need to do a lot of computations in the background, then it's great. It will make it really, really fast. But you have to kind of link through some messaging system between your front end and your WebAssembly. So that part gets a little bit tricky, but there's definitely potential there. So that was, yeah. And he showed a great demo on just doing a FizzBuzz and how it was actually done. But he was messaging back and forth, so there was no way for him to access that DOM. So that's the kind of the downside of WebAssembly.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going into it, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, tons of work going in. I mean, it's compiled, so you can't just view source and read it. But most JavaScript source is minified or gone through some kind of processing anyway. So yeah, interesting kind of evolution for the JavaScript language space. Last talk we had in this track was sorry to interrupt. Joel, I should hand this back to Joel, but last talk was James Quick with Auth0 talking about React and serverless.
Yeah, just a quick introduction to the Jamstack, which is kind of the latest trend that a lot of JavaScript developers are using. So JavaScript markup and I'm missing something. JavaScript
APIs.
APIs and markup.
JavaScript APIs and Markdown.
JavaScript a something.
Yeah,
and markup.
I forget.
But just a way to basically have static pages that are still dynamic, makes it for a very, very efficient website, very fast. So it was an interesting talk about those
JavaScript, APIs, and markup.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here's the link
Jamstack.
to that. Jamstack.org, folks. And actually, that's kind of how I build my websites nowadays. So.
Yeah, he talked a lot about Netlify and how Netlify uses that, or GitHub Pages, how you can leverage that, and all those different technologies. If you don't need any computation or real computation, how you can kind of connect easily to small services and small serverless services.
Yeah. All right. 10 minutes left. Jay, what's up, bud?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
So the Python track, I'm not going to try to compete with these two and say Python's the most popular language because it's just not. But what I will
it's up
say,
there though. Okay,
it is up there, and I could be obnoxious and flip the argument onto the ones that developers like the most.
Yeah,
Python
it's easier to program. Come on, it is less syntax.
Wow.
It definitely has
a full-on language war on the show today. This is great.
I mean, this stood the chance to get ugly. So did the stack one we did a couple of weeks ago. So when is our VI versus Emacs stream? Because
oh god,
oh man,
AI. So I'm glad JP Day said this because I was going to mention exactly that AI guys love Python, but honestly, the variety of talks I had was kind of bonkers. So where I was going to lead this into and say, I'm not going to try to argue they're the most popular because they're typically known for data science, but it actually worked out to be kind of wild that the topics were so broad around that. So Yeah, I joked earlier about picking a favorite kid. I'm not going to pick a favorite, but I will say that the first talk was on KOPF, or he actually just said it COPF, the Python-based operators framework, SDK. I don't know exactly what to call it, but Kubernetes operator Python framework, I think is what it stands for. Because operators have been a big deal for me for the past year and a half or so, and having them available in Python when the operator SDK focuses on Go and Helm and Ansible was particularly interesting to me, kind of combining the two. Streamlabs, damn. I guess, Chris, did you push a button or did that just auto react to me saying operators and drop that in there?
I just do the
lie
command.
to me.
Yeah.
Lie to me. Say we got some AI.
No, it's
running
completely
on
automated with Python.
Completely automated, exactly. Yes. Where's I go with this? So yeah, so I saw him talk last year at KubeCon, and was really excited to reach out to him and be like, hey, you don't know me, but I really want you to come talk about this. Then there was a talk about micropip env. Wait, am I screwing up the name of this? No, I think that's the full name. We have notes. Hang on. I know the premise of the yeah, micropip env. So what was really interesting about this talk is that I have been one of those people who kind of, I joked earlier about build tools and they should kind of disappear. And I've stagnated a bit on moving past my kind of pip-based approach to Python. And I haven't really looked into a lot of the alternatives that he talked about in here, poetry and PYENV, and all this other stuff that is absolutely probably should have adopted, but it was one of those when I'm at the point where I'm using it, I'm like, I don't have time to figure that shit out right now. Let's just go with what works. So that was really interesting, especially the way he painted the background leading up to this micropip env project, which is a facade on top of a number of different underlying build systems or dependency managements. There's a lot, I'm blurring the terms here, but it's a lot about how do I get and install a Python project and manage its dependencies and libraries and whatever and whatnot.
Micropip, does it result in smaller images?
No,
Maybe?
you would.
No?
I didn't figure out the micro part of that, to be perfectly honest with you, because I kind of wondered the same thing, but it ultimately has nothing to do with that kind of thing. And honestly, if you have pip in your image, you've probably done something wrong, because that's a build level tool. It's like having make on your image where you probably don't need it there.
Right, yeah.
That's much more of a build time dependency. Third talk, running a self-service AI ML. Okay, this was Open Data Hub team. This one was cool for me because I had an intern 3 years ago now, named Anish. He came back to Red Hat, works on the Open Data Hub team. And I was like, cool. I still had this friendship with him. I'm like, hey, come on and speak with us. So Open Data Hub is a collection of AI ML projects that Red Hat has been incubating is not the right word, but this kind of collecting into this Open Data Hub. And oh shit, I was leading up to something I can't actually say. But we really like Open Data Hub. So I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah. The good news is I don't fully understand the announcement I'm not allowed to say. So
from the future, folks,
just keep an eye out for Open Data Hub news. The best way, it's one of those. All right, I'm gonna tangent real quick. You only got 5 minutes, but screw it. And I used to do.
We have a hard stop at noon, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine. So do I. Chris Morgan's gonna be calling me. You know how persistent that's.
Oh yeah.
But I used to do. I used to have government clearance at like doing consulting, and everyone's like, "Cool. Do you know cool shit?" I'm like, "I don't know what I'm looking at." So like, I don't care how cool it is. It was the same thing with this thing I almost spoiled. Like, I didn't actually know what the announcement was. I just know it was about Open Data.
That's awesome.
Anyway, keep an eye out for that when someone who's a little more intelligent than me and a much more eloquent speaker is going to make something legitimate.
Tune in next week for the big reveal.
We'll have Jason Dobies on dressed up as Vanna White just cause.
I still won't be able to explain what the hell it is.
No, you just got to turn the letters, dude. That's all.
Right. We'll have an Ishan. The next talk was by Diana Rodriguez. Joel actually introduced me to her.
I know Diana. She's awesome.
She is awesome. She fulfilled my Mohawk quota that Paul Mori left me lacking. If you've never met Paul, what I love about him is that when you're at a conference and you're like, oh, talk to Paul about that. And they're like, who's Paul? And you just say this, because he's got this spectacular Mohawk, which usually some kind of gradient of colors. And I joked in chat because early he gets into the call, he's got a hat on. And I was like irrationally pissed off Then Super Die shows up. She goes by Super Die on Twitter, and bright pink, just straight down the head. So we got that quota in.
Nice.
She also talked something about Python. No, she talked about Flask, which is Flask and Django are the two big Python-based frameworks for web-based stuff. And it was a really interesting talk. I like her style. It was the closest to that kitty litter where you get someone who's not taking she wasn't taking a tech edit, but she's a personality. Like, you got that bright pink mohawk. You can kind of expect she's going to have some real personality behind her talk. And it was very excellent. It was mind-blowing to me that Burr actually asked a Python question in there, and I was like, yeah, look at you trying to learn something. But it was very cool of Burr to actually be open to that. And then
I definitely agree on she's a great person to follow online. If you're not already following her, you gotta consider it.
Chris, I'm gonna hope you dig it up. I'm almost positive it's just Super Die, as
I think
Super
so, yeah.
DI. Hopefully he can dig that up.
I got it.
Amazing, just an awesome personality to be talking about stuff, and one of those that just gets you just kind of interested in what she's got to say. And then we ended the talk on a very light topic, just quantum computing, which we talked between Red Hat and IBM. And, you know, I said I was not equipped to talk too much about Open Data Hub in this announcement, even after that. And I've been part of our quantum initiative inside of Red Hat, and holy shit, that is some just, did you ever meet those people that are so stupidly smart? You're like, I don't really have a right sitting next to you in this conversation.
That's
It was
like
one
me
of
every day.
those, but super fascinating to see that kind of thing get represented, and how we're trying to emulate that off of actual quantum computers and stuff like that. There's a Python library called Qiskit or Qiskit, Qiskit. Never sure how to pronounce it, but I had done some work a couple months ago about getting that enabled in a Jupyter notebook running on OpenShift, and then our AI Center of Excellence has picked it up from there and kind of run with it. So
there's an example this close to being launched on learn.openshift.com with Qiskit and OpenShift. So,
oh shit, that has been proceeding?
Oh yeah.
I wasn't on that thread for the follow-ups, but that's amazing.
I'm on the review right now, so it should be there soon.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've been meaning to follow up with you, because that's been on our list of stuff to do. And I know I was kind of tag teamed on that. So to reiterate what Brian said, learn.openshift.com, our Katacoda scenarios. Perul, who was one of the speakers, she reached out to us, I guess about 2 months ago at this point, saying, hey, we want to get a Katacoda based scenario around this Qiskit. And from the sound of it, it's very close. So keep an eye on learn.openshift for what I suspect will be a brand new category, either titled quantum or just crazy futuristic shit, or something between there, so we can actually keep it a little bit open for new content. But that's awesome. I'm really excited that's managed to manifest. And with 2 minutes left, I will shut up there.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. Thank you all for hanging out with us today. Thanks for the questions in chat for folks in the stream with us. Thank you to Edson for joining us. Congrats on your first time on the stream here. It was great to have you, and hope to see you all next week at the next Developer Experience office hours. Coming up next on the channel, we have the OpenShift Commons hour. So stick around for that if that's something you're interested in. Thanks again, all. Chris?
Yep. Have a great
Signing
day,
us out.
everybody, and we will see you soon.
All right. See you next time, all. Thanks.